welcome everyone. Appreciate your patience. So we are going to be talking about balancing business with babies, entrepreneurial parents sharing their secrets, and we mean theirs and yours and ours. So this is intended to be interactive. We'll talk a little bit about ourselves, our journeys as parents and entrepreneurs. We'll get you guys talking and sharing, and then we'll come back and have a full share out where we can provide guidance. You guys can hear from each other. If there's one thing that we all know, and I would assume you all know at this point as well, is that it takes a village and all ideas are good ideas. So that was kind of the purpose of our coming together today. So we'll do some introductions, and then we're going to spend most of our time really as a group having that conversation. So my name is Sarah Wolters. I have a background in elementary and special education, so I was a classroom teacher first, and then I worked for the University of Missouri, and I started considering my entrepreneurial journey when I was at the University of Missouri. I got trained in, come on in please, in the Intercultural Development Inventory, which is a DEI tool. And at that point, I knew that this was something I could do on the side of my day job, so I started wondering about it. I also started selling makeup during COVID, because why not? I needed a creative outlet, and I couldn't go anywhere. So I started working for Saint, so then I was introduced to that level of entrepreneurship and tons of women who were doing it as parents. So these seeds were kind of planted over the years. And in just last year, so 2023, I went out on my own, and I do offer training and project management, and I accidentally did that a month before we adopted our son. So I have a almost 16-month-old at home, and my business is just about the same age, so I am on the very tail end of both business and babies. I'm doing it all at once, so my experiences will kind of speak from that lens, although I've been doing training and these types of efforts for much longer than that in terms of it being my own entrepreneurial effort. Education and youth development is definitely my passion. Let's see. Yeah, other than that, we live in North Kansas City. I love all things local. I'm a big shop small, shop local. So I love things like this when I can get introduced to all of the random little things I can find in Kansas City when Jack allows me to go adventure out and do that. So you're gonna be next.
Hello everyone, I'm Andrea Luzon Coates. I'm glad that I got to chat with a few of you upon arrival. I do leadership and wellness coaching for mostly men through ADHD advocacy. Transformational leadership are my two main emphases. So I mostly work with people that are really finding some unease somewhere in their life. They're feeling some upsets, they're feeling some disappointments, and we work together to shift that, to shift them into like the goals that they want to orient towards. So it's different for each person. You can read more about that up there. Wow, my journey is, I'm from Minnesota. Anybody else from Minnesota? No?
I've been there 6 years.
Yay! Minnesota. So I'm from Minnesota. Actually, also went to high school and college in Fargo, North Dakota. No? Okay. All right, so kind of a small town. Walked away from a full ride master's scholarship to study counseling. Moved out to Los Angeles to nanny, and nannied for a couple of years, and then became a globetrotter. Loved backpacking, loved international experiences, different cultures. Just absolutely loved that. Taught English in Japan for a year. That was also awesome. So I highly recommend that to anyone who's like, what should I do for the next, should I take a sabbatical? Yes, take a sabbatical. Sow your oats while you can, while you're young. But then mostly went into event planning. And so I've loved event planning. I've been talking to some of their planners here. It's still a huge passion of mine. Conferences, weddings, just such a happy spot. But then I got a job at Burns & McDonnell engineering firm. You might have heard of it. I was a project coordinator, and it shifted from being sort of a marketing sales position into like an analysis job. So I was analyzing data, which is not my strong point at all. And I stayed for like the insurance, and because I have twins, stayed for the insurance, but then had a major breakdown in the winter of 2018. Panic attack. I'd never had a panic attack in my life. And so I called a friend who had studied transformational leadership and had really gotten herself out of the rat race, if you will, like, just kind of working for the man, sort of a thing. And that's when I found myself in coaching. I was like, okay, if I can feel better about my life, how can I stand for other people doing the same? So, ergo, now we have this entrepreneurial journey, and so I've worked with moms of ADHD kids. I'm recently diagnosed myself. Looking back through report cards, how was I not diagnosed when I was like 5? But yeah, so working with a lot of people and navigating the ADHD journey, the neurodivergence that you might be experiencing or you might have with your kid. Okay, there we go. Julie.
Oh, yeah. Take a sip if you need.
Okay, I'm Julie Dusold Culbertson. Good morning. Thank all of you for being here. I have a background in health policy, regulatory compliance, administration, and I left a job that I really, really loved, working for the oversight agency for the Federal Department of Health and Human Services when I became a mom, because I knew I could not do the job in the way I was used to doing the job, the standard I had set for myself. And nurse my baby every 2 hours for 40 minutes at a time, which is what the first 6 months of her life were like. Yeah, it was rough. And then I was basically pregnant and nursing for about 5 years. And everybody thinks it's sort of a luxury to be a stay-at-home parent, and it's just a different kind of hard. It was extremely hard for me to leave that health policy world that I loved, and I've been working in it for about 15 years. It wasn't a flash in the pan kind of a thing. And I needed more intellectual stimulation. The pandemic hit when my kids were 2 and 5, and it was a disaster. Near breakdown, not my first panic attack, but almost daily I was like, I need help, and nobody would help. Grandma wasn't helping. We found out the 2-year-old had arthritis and had to go on these hardcore immunosuppressants, so we were like not leaving the house. It was a scary time for me, but in that time I reconnected with my old college roommate who was certified in youth mental health, first aid, and we started a nonprofit that educates adults about youth mental health. And that gave me, something interesting to get back into when my kids had went to sleep at night. There wasn't a whole lot of time, really, to devote to that, but we did create a board and got our, 501c3 certification status, and next I launched my experiential fine jewelry line that promotes self-care and social impact. I'm about to launch my functional fitness platform, so I've gone all in on entrepreneurship now that the kids are both in school full-time. They're just 6 and 9 right now, so I'm still primary parent to them, but making time when I can for getting all my ventures off the ground, and I do a bit of strategic consulting as well for mission-driven companies that are trying to have a big impact. So here we are.
I should have said I'm also primary parent, so I've got daycare 2 days officially, 1 day with grandparents, and then we're home 2 days, and then Andrea, you also.
Yeah. Both of my kids are in school. The grandparents do take them on Saturday night or date night.
Ooh.
Highly recommend date night.
So,
If you can get some more.
I was going to say, so differing levels of what work hours look like, but primary parents in different lenses. Okay, so when we got together, and I should preface this, we didn't say this yet, we had not met before we submitted this panel. We are all a part of the Innovate Hers organization. Anyone? Okay, love it. So Innovate Hers, the premise is bringing together female entrepreneurs and innovators in the area. Lots of amazing events, lots of amazing community and networking. I had presented here a couple years ago. Last year clearly did not make it. Jack was 3 months old and there was no way I was making that deadline, so I was excited to come back this year. And thinking about my last year, this was something that interested me. So I put it out in the group and said, hey, anyone want to present with me? And so these 2 lovely women said yes, and that's what brought us here. And so when we sat down to talk about what does this session look like and what do we really want to bring to all of you, it really ended up just being a conversation about our experiences where we started identifying common threads. So at this point is where we want to turn it to you all before we just sit here and talk at you. There's 4 threads that we found, and we want to hear your stories and your experiences within these areas, and then we're going to come back and talk about not only your experiences but ours as well. So the questions are up here, but the chart paper mirrors each question, and you've got Post-its at your table. So we're going to ask that you all are spending some time talking, brainstorming. If you don't have a Post-it or a partner, feel free to move and find one, and putting your thoughts and ideas of how these are working for you and how you're utilizing these in your current space. So the first one is one that I'm really curious about. This one is, I feel like, where I'm living right now. Adapt your services to match your lifestyle. Thinking about what you're offering, what you're doing, and does it fit in the hours that you have available? Does it make sense for your life right now? Childcare. The expected and the unexpected, right? The things I can plan for and the things I can't. That support is such a huge puzzle piece to this being successful. This third one, visionaries and thought leaders. This is important regardless of your parenting status, but especially when we talk about like that intellectual, like I need to feed that part of me. Having those thought leaders and those visionaries in your life who aren't going to talk to you about parenting and are there to talk to you about business and ideas and challenges and where do you go next. And then that 4th bucket is cheerleaders. They could be in a number of these different buckets, but the people who are just there when you're having your panic attack to keep you going and to get you through to the next day, right? The people who are there because this is hard. This is really, really hard, and you need someone in your corner. So we're gonna spread out, we're gonna move around and talk with you all, but start thinking about what you have in your space in these 4 different areas and what's worked for you, and then we're gonna come all back together. Yeah.
I'll add one thing about item 2 there and the unexpected and childcare. I know not all of you have kids, so if you want to think about the unexpected in other ways in your life, whether you've got fur babies at home and that's a problem when you travel, whether you've got parents or other family members or other people who are depending on you, the caregiving economy is not just about children. A lot of us are also in that sandwich generation where we are thinking about parents or other folks of different abilities in our life that need help, and sometimes we have to drop everything, and it's not always about kids.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll take about 20 minutes in these groups, so plenty of time for conversation. Walk the Post-its up when you've got a chance, and then we'll come back and talk whole group. And these will stay up here, so. Oh yes, I do have pens and markers, sorry. No, you're good. Yeah, I love your pen. So that's, do you have a pen over here? No, thank you.
Sometimes I just put stuff out there and I don't realize how big it's group that.
Well, and it was memorable.
Because that post took off. They told me like they've never seen that kind of engagement. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. It's like big plus. Like, you're the one with the I'm like, yeah. Yeah. So that's what you remember. Yes. Well, I think everyone just wanted to support. Sure. Well, we have that. And I dropped a comment.
Yes, thank you. So we will share out the slides as well as the conversation. So we'll ask for your information in a survey at the end, and we'll get all of this brainstorming and the slides back to you. And you can enter yours in your friends or just yours and share it.
This is like, I feel like I'm chapter. Oh wait. For all the above? Yeah. I guess I'll just write like
Oh yeah, don't write essays.
in my head it's like a whole story.
It is a whole story. Yeah. Write enough to remind you and we'll talk.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here if I didn't have a cheerleader to tell me I could do it in the first place. So how do you that's yeah, exactly. Because I think part of it is we get too busy to spend time with these people that we need to be with.
So how do you protect that time? In what form or what way? When I was in St. Louis teaching, I had a girlfriend who afternoon walks were a thing. We didn't teach in the same school, but we were both going through the same education struggles. And every day after school, her school, my school, we met and walked. And that was how I made sure, and in that case, she was my thought leader and my cheerleader. But I had a dog, so I had to take her out anyways, and that was really prioritized because of that space. And I don't do a very good job of that now as well. I don't have those things. You know, how do you make sure, is it a text message, is it a phone call? Yes.
So I go to her house and help her get there done. She's a teacher.
Yes.
With the kids, they want to go to sign twice, 2 days a week.
I love that, and I tell my friends.
And I get stuff done too. I'm like a leader, thought leader.
It is. It's just having someone in your space. You two are intentionally together 2 or 3 days a week. So you can cheerlead her, and she can cheerlead you. Yeah, I mean, just finding that time. Yeah, so it can just be little bits and pieces of the story. Kids don't really have to write the whole story and post it, but enough for you to kind of call out and give those examples. I have that person who does that for me because she works, 3/12s, and so she has days off where she can come over and I'm like, you just have to take a call. And it ends up being like we do lunch together or, everything together.
She was doing with a student that's here from Shanghai. His just wanted to
Right, yeah.
Probably found that on
So for me,
well, and then there's that on top of it.
really hard to wonderful by nature, and it made sense. I had a client, it was stable, but it's structure. Probably not for this one.
How are we doing?
And so that's kind of good.
Good. Finding
Middle of
places where
processing
you're
that.
certain flow. You have some experience,
Your hours, your service,
some challenges.
so that it better fits where you are now. And that's
What's the hardest right now?
of course.
Oh, actually changing what you're doing to be able to work with your schedule.
Yeah.
Well, just, it goes back to kind of like, you said this, and then, like, I was enjoying this.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that I would have to put it after houses.
Yeah. It's like that didn't go into the equation.
No.
Yeah.
And like, other people can't relate to it. Yeah. My husband's used to be
Yeah. Yeah.
If I ever get to kindergarten,
It's backhanded. Yeah.
like I
shouldn't have to be
be
supervised.
expected to operate at the level that I
Yeah.
don't work so that would do that.
Oh my gosh.
Pull it off.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of like having to find yourself in that balance, and so which like no one around me understands. Especially as a twin mom, like I don't know what a twin mom don't understand it. I have a lot of people that come up to me and say, "My kids are practically twins, what doesn't matter."
No, that is not the same.
And I don't mean it in a rude way, but I'm just like,
No. No, I would not have survived.
find me at 3 a.m. and I'll let you know.
Right.
Stuff like that. It's,
Yeah.
it's little stuff, but it's like it adds up really fast.
Yeah. For sure.
Just like keep going. And that's when you have a problem. And then on the business side, it's a whole nother level. It's like, oh my god, now I'm a mom. That's like my greatest privilege to stay at home first.
My parents when we talked
No matter
about
what.
it, they were
Even though like I missed the first session, I was
week
like,
and they were and yeah, between the three of us, and just to make sure that girls are like, you know, they're not, and so it's a matter of now like thinking about product lines that, or like services that I wouldn't normally have, but now like, well, I have to ask them and then ask them because they're doing the situation that gives us 2 full days to go through, and then there's like all sorts of work.
So we're talking about kind of 4 areas where entrepreneurs generally need some help. We're sharing what's been working well, and we'll see where the biggest challenges are. We can maybe borrow from each other. And do you have kiddos? So we talked about how the childcare one also applies if you have pets, if you have parents or people in your life that need your time for caregiving. So it's not just about childcare. So what's working, what's the struggle? I will the first later.
I mostly hear to listen because I do like my whole Instagram feed is mom stuff. Okay. So I'm like super in like all of it.
All in. I was not all in until like one day I woke up and I was like 33 and I was like,
I know.
You know?
That sounds like a
I think I recently decided I found a partner that I was always adamant about not having kids. And met this man that I love and stuff.
And there you go.
And he's like, I want kids. I'm like, can we just start with one?
Maybe a dog?
No, we have to have a dog. No, he wants an actual
human being.
Okay. I'm just like, I feel like
And I also
I could feel, and I'm starting to feel like, I saw a baby and I was like, that could be, that could be fun.
It could be fun and it's so fun. But
I'm scared to death.
here's what I will tell you.
Please tell me. Don't do it.
So my little ones are 6 and 9 now. Well, I will say, it is not for everyone.
No.
Okay? I'm not one of those women that's like, what are you going to do when you're old? You should definitely have kids.
No,
people were telling me that, from the time I was like 22 on, I was like, I'm going to be sitting with my pile of money and like traveling and having like
lifelong commitment. Yeah, like it's an 18-year. No, it is not just your old.
Right, no, like I'm going to be having a great time.
Right.
Thank you.
And nobody, at least in my opinion, nobody talks about like it's just not only the 9 months of like physical changes.
Right.
It's literally like afterwards. Like there are times where like this might be TMI, but literally like the day I had my C-section, I was filing taxes like in the hospital. Like on it.
Well,
like that's
the day after I had the second one, I was taking the first one to school. I was driving and I was bleeding and I have to get the car seat in the car and I've got my toddler that I'm taking to school. And it's like nobody else was there to do it.
right.
So,
Like you lose, like I think they say like 7% of your brain temporarily. Like
there's a big brain fog. Yeah.
Wait, what?
It causes actual biological change.
I'm scared on that because I've had a baby before they died. So I'm sorry. It's okay. I know. But 6 years?
6 years. So then based on that, I was saying like, so I guess I have to decide fast if I actually want more. I'd rather be like these 6 years than I'm just like decrease brain power instead of like what my mom did was crazy. Like she had like me and then 8 years later she had my sister and that's a lot of brain changes. So I'm like, well I guess I should go through it with it like a few. So it's just nobody talks about like my eyesight drastically changed. They were like, I don't know what it was. It was like an extra privilege for people, like things that I needed to get on my list. I'm like, oh my god. And there's like a list and no one talks about it. And like I still now, like after physical therapy, getting back into my activity. Things like going to your science. I'm like,
You're actually very amazing. You're very pretty.
But it's just everything changes fast.
Yeah, it does. Well, whatever. what I wanted to offer from a business standpoint is I didn't do the calculation when I left this career that I loved. I didn't do the calculation of like how easy is it going to be to on-ramp back into this field. And especially if like I am out of the field for several years after having kids, if I had to do it over again, I would have tried to figure out if there's a way I could stay on part-time, work something out. The pandemic probably would have blown that up anyway, but to an cycle. But I didn't do the calculation of what am I giving up from an intellectual standpoint? Am I prepared for not talking to other adults for days at a time when my husband's working 70 hours a week? That is hard. When you think about social and emotional impacts, if you're entertaining the idea of being a stay-at-home parent and leaving your career, if you're thinking about something entrepreneurial while you are parenting hard, because it's not as easy as like, oh, I had a lot of time in babies napping, or like my babies were lucky to nap for like a half hour at a time.
Girl, you pulled one down.
The other ones, I mean, a lot of them, like a lot of times I wouldn't nap unless they were on me in the carrier and I was moving my body, so it's sort of like, maybe you could figure, when we're talking about schedules, like maybe you could figure something out where you're taking calls from people at that time, but it's a whole different, if you need reliable chunks of time, those are generally going to have to be ones where
But when you do get that time, like, you're probably exhausted.
Yeah.
So how do you, like, my question is, like, how can you be an entrepreneur? Is it even, I'm sorry, is it even possible?
It is
Yeah.
But I mean,
Support.
it takes a lot of
It takes a lot of support.
Exactly. You can't do it without a support system. Like, for me to be here, it requires 3 people out here. Because there's twins that we use. But like, and they're only one.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Are they mobile?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Once they can walk, it's all over.
Yeah.
Even crawling.
Like, but then the other struggle is traveling with them for 9 to 5. As much as I appreciate, like yesterday, I really wanted to leave my husband was out on special because we figured some stuff that he else, and then it's like the other side of it is like I want my kids raised in a specific way, and so I have to then talk to myself and feel like you can't go home and criticize people that have literally like been there and are largely holding down the whole house for you, so you can go out and be like whatever badass you want to be. And so that also takes some energy, like to do like that self-talk that they would do that thing there.
I had a moment with my mother-in-law who was my biggest support, and I love her, and she's fantastic. My friend's mom. I had a moment with her last weekend where she walked in the house, and we have this room that's just like a dumping zone. It's embarrassing. I will clean it out, and it'll just be like dumping zone 3 days later. It's just like where it is the designated.
People are and you will realize that it was
And she was like, she's being kind and like, would you like somebody to help you clean this? And I was sort of like, yeah, but like that would be great. But I don't have the bandwidth to like tell them where everything goes right now. And then she looked at me and was like, you really need to prioritize that. And I was like, oh, thank you for that. But in my mind, it wasn't just that conversation that she was actually being really kind and trying to be helpful. It was like everything about the patriarchy that is, like, has been building up for my whole life. And walking away from my job and walking away from the $1.2 million I would have in my bank account if I hadn't done that 10 years ago, and everything that I have given up as a primary parent, and all the things I'm trying to work out with my husband on having more equity in the social, emotional, physical labor around the house, which is not easy, given that he works 70 hours a week. So like all of the things to be
You really have married right now.
Yeah, I mean he has all the time.
Because the thing is, like, in order to, I mean, I don't know your situation, but in order to give me the flexibility and the freedom to, like, go out on this and say, like, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur and like, take my business full time. And the money's not gonna come day one, right? It's not like a job. So that means you have to have something to fall back on, but then again, you don't want to defeat your savings because again, you're expenses. So then that results in him working like ridiculous. Like I think last week he did 80 hours. So that's kind of the give and take that was decided, but then I have all sorts of bills. So, but then that to me translates to I just have to work on the business for you know what I mean? If I want to get them great, I just have to ramp it up like quicker.
And that's part of why I turned to entrepreneurship was I feel like that's going to give me the flexibility I still need to be the primary parent and hopefully take some pressure off of him and allow him to step back a little bit with my ventures and the income that's coming in from that compared to the kind of health policy work I was doing before, which would not really allow me to.
So did you leave your primary job and dive right in, or was there a transition
There
period
was
where
like
you were building
dead years where I was just coming up with all these creative ideas and didn't have time to implement them. And then finally, once the pandemic was over, I was able to get in more full throttle and but yeah, there were a few years where I just had all these great ideas and I had to keep track of them because I just didn't have time. And I started my nonprofit during the pandemic when I was just sort of having to do stuff after the kids went to sleep. I was exhausted and the house was wrecked and you know, I'm not getting the exercise that I need. So it was hard. It's still hard because I'm still so primary parent even though several years have passed. So there's 6 families that are both in grad school.
I'm in West Plaza.
But like there's an event I would like to go to tonight, but you know the little one has Girl Scouts and the older one has piano lessons and my husband's not there till 6 and you know I'm getting grandma to help out, but you know somebody still has to shuttle the kids around. So it's a lot of emotions going into some of you know your ventures and your personal life. And things feel loaded. So I'm a highly sensitive person. So things feel, even when somebody's just saying like, you want somebody to help you clean your thing, you should, you know, like she meant well, but in my mind it's just like.
Like she reorganized her. She was trying to help.
But like now you don't know where anything is.
Oh my goodness, it's hard. Like the guy doesn't need so I don't know the trains are right like it's so like I accidentally started like slamming the cat before.
Oh yeah.
It's like it takes 30 minutes to just find it out to me.
Yeah.
I don't need it.
Yeah.
So 30 minutes was the time that I was going to spend thinking about it. Like, they're right now. There.
Yeah.
But there's also
Kids are wonderful.
they are.
My kids are amazing. They're so
You change your mind when you're
I need to take a quiz to see if I should be well, because like I've never wanted to be a parent outside of the partners wanting to be a parent. So I had a daughter, a carrier return and all that stuff. And so that didn't work out. So I could never. I was a super mom with all the classes, but I was there to be her mom. But I was terrified, and I'm terrified now of being a single mother. And there's lots of people who aren't single, but they are single mothers.
yeah.
So I am afraid to
That's a valid fear.
It's weird that I'm kind of like, oh, that could be, I mean, that
It could be so fun. It could be so fun.
It sounds layered.
It's layered. My kids are
Listen to you,
incredible.
I'm very afraid.
Kids are really cool. They're gonna be so cool when they're like 25. Okay, but right now.
Like I'm holding on. So
I was a mess growing up. Like I had major behavior issues. I know it's like hard to relate, but I realized that like I would run out of my school and like they would have to catch me by my hand.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because you know I'm creative, so I didn't have that outlet.
They just did school.
Sitting in school.
Then I went to private school and it worked out, but I needed a lot of help with therapy. I was on some medication early on. And I mean, I was a temper tantrum. I was in the middle middle school. Like I was crazy. But it's just because it really is because I'm a creative and I needed an outlet, and those opportunities weren't available growing up. Like it was like, even though my dad's a psychiatrist, it's hard to see your own child needing that, and there's tools. So anyway, I'm impressed that I turned out okay. Like I really but yeah, and their parents, and they said they were like, it was so hard to have you, and my mom had 2 miscarriages before she had me, so then there's like this, little girl who's
It's what I heard.
but now like we're best friends. We're shitty about that. So
Like you don't know if you're gonna have that kid or like my first one she's super focused by the time she was like 3 and wanted to do the workbooks and she's reading at a 4th grade level in kindergarten and like she's like really cool and the other one is what you were just describing where she's one of our clothes, she's one of the
I did
where she's supposed to sit, like she's very she's gonna be running a company one day and she's gonna do a good job of it, but like it's not easy to like do it.
You know what I mean? That
Emotionally.
And you never know. Let alone I also had learning disabilities, and it was the more classic ways of treating that. So it was like, maybe take your test in a separate room, and go a grade below to take your math, and it's like all these isolating things. And now it's so much.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna go one of 2 ways.
So, and my fiance is also kind of like me. We're just kind of some crazy people, and we are already like talking about preparing for our kids to be like more, so that we have those tools to let them like be free.
But you never know where you're gonna get.
Like I could be the most
Like I early on was like twin bees, wild, but like twin bees, the whole thing, everyone around was like, and like the people thought I was crazy when they were, and then now after the form, people are like, oh my god, twin bees, I'm like, do not hear me. Like, the whole 9 months, like,
I said what I said.
that girl, oh my god, I can tell you, she's wild. So, you just don't know what you get. Like, they're both different personalities. They're both, I mean, like, one is very, like, sensitive with her dad, and she's, like, very, mommy, what am I supposed to do? Like, right now, I was actually just, like, latched on the name, and I let her go. She's, like, a little koala. I'm like, okay.
That piles the mom guilt a little more.
Yeah, and then I looked at my husband and I said, remember when I said that I don't want to have girls for but it's not gonna happen. So, and then Twin Bee's like, I see you when you're at, it's totally different. Just thinking.
Tell yourself that like doing this is good for you, and therefore good for them.
It's good mom.
Happy mom can be their mom.
Yeah, sometimes it's not really good at mom guilt. It's okay.
And that's what I use too. Because like for me, I think that
I thought, like, are you doing a talk or is there a gathering?
Oh yeah, but
Yes.
was that
Okay.
I was so tired of having to build my own business. But I was like, just gonna build my own freaking business. Like, I'm just gonna build it my own there. Like, and it's a way for me to tell Carl anything that you want to do. And that's why I'm more consistent now with the business, and it's not a side thing, it's going full time. It's because it's really for that. It's like to show them that you can do whatever you want. Just your role. Like, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So I think that's what's kind of like fueling my fire right now.
Nice to meet you, Violet.
I think so. Rounding back up.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
We mostly talked about how disaster, but we'll talk more about the good stuff and what is working. Okay. We'll leave on that.
We're not gonna let you
I'm trying to be realistic. And
I am.
If we can find a stopping point, this is exactly what we hoped for, but also what we're going to run out of time for, so appreciate it. I'm going to stand over here so I can breathe. So what we envision for the ending here is sharing out of your ideas and then kind of piggybacking off of those. So I don't know if you guys want the microphone and
We can pass it around.
okay. And so, if there's a specific idea or hindsight we have with our experiences, throw it in. If you guys respond to each other, obviously throw that in. So this first one is how you utilize this idea of adapting your services for your lifestyle. And so some thoughts that we threw out: work when you have time. Work when you have time. We are our best customer, a diaper service.
Yes.
Love it. To make a job that works for you right now. You know where to find all your customers. Past bedtime work, retaining for ongoing stability. We also talked about with this past bedtime work being really intentional that you have some structure around that. It's easy as a parent to say this is the work time. You're also potentially, not all of us, but also in a relationship. And if that's the case, that's also your relationship time. So we talked about being really careful that it doesn't just become work every night. Maybe you pick a weeknight and I don't work Thursday nights after bed. Something like that. A nanny, reorganize duties, business partners. We talked about virtual assistants. We talked about nannies, intentional scheduling. If your child naps or has daycare or part-time something, scheduling around those. Oh, not from home. Interesting. Getting out of your bubble, is that what that reference is? I like that. Templates, passive income is huge right now. Things that you can do during a nap, during bed, and then you don't have to be online all the time. Fit it in whenever. Oh, I like this. My brother did this, but for a different reason. So creating each child a personal email address to help manage their own commitments. My brother did it because he didn't want them to have only weird names available when they turned 18. So he wanted to make emails for them with their actual names so that they weren't like the ones you don't want to put on a resume, but that's my type A brother.
I really did it for my dog, but for people with kids.
I love it. I think that's a great idea. I've never thought about it from that angle.
Yes.
Any thoughts you guys want me to pass? Anything in this realm?
One thing I would, something that I was going to mention at our table is just the concept of working remotely. I mean, a lot of us are already digital and we're already teaching online or whatever our services are online. But for me, I have a vision. Part of my lifestyle would be a bit more travel, and so to be able to take my laptop with me and go to the beach and go out. And and a lot of us are working the don't work at home, the working from a coffee shop, like noise canceling headphones, and you're not getting distracted by the dishes and all the other things that your house is asking you to do. So yeah, adapting services.
Yeah, I spoke at one table, but I'm living this one right now. I said I'm a trainer and a project manager. Project management isn't super conducive to part-time childcare. It is a job where they expect you to be available daily, and so something I'm considering right now is that a service I want to promote? Maybe I only promote my training because it makes more sense, and maybe I come back to that later. So it could literally be your business, or it could be how you do it. Okay. Childcare, expected and unexpected. Family, especially with the unexpected, it sounds like. Family. Meals when sick. Love that. I don't know about you guys, but I was very fortunate. I had a lot of people bring meals when we first adopted Jack. And now I wonder how I'm supposed to feed him 3 times a day when I don't have a freezer full of meals. And my godmother brought me a bag full of protein balls, and could I make them myself? Absolutely. Have I? No. But that was really smart to have those there. So that's a big one. Ride sharing, I love that. Ride sharing's on here twice. Car time can be a lot of wasted time. If that's a duty you can share, that's a huge one. Backup plans on backup plans. Yeah. We talked about with my husband and I, if I'm taking a call and it's remote and it's within an hour, I can handle it okay. If I've got back-to-back hours, then Jack might be with him or he might have to come home or whatever the case is. So knowing what your boundaries are for each of you if you're having to juggle something professionally.
I will say for those of you who want to have kids and don't have them yet, I have a few friends that had this sort of like fantasy that they would just put their kids in a playpen and like they'd be cool for hours while they ran their business. And I have maybe like one friend whose kids were actually cool with that, but my kids are like part billy goat, and like there was no containing them. They needed to be outside, putting everything in their mouths that they can get a hold of. Like there was no amount of baby proofing that was going to allow me to like work for 6 hours while my 2-year-old was at home. There was just no world in which that was going to happen. So if that's your strategy, I'm just cautioning you that it's really going to depend on what kind of kid you have, and they have to be a real unicorn to make that work. And I will say this piggybacks off of your cheerleaders. I have made such good parent friends and been able to help out, and we know who has a full-time job where they can't get away versus who has more flexibility. And so we know if there's a day off of school or whatever, those of us that have a little more flexibility and are going to be home with our kids anyway, if my partner is not working from home that day, or even if they are, say, I'll take the kids to the zoo that day, for those of you who can't get away from your job. Making those kind of connections, which we'll talk about in a minute, is so important, especially if we're talking about the fact that some of us are going to be single parents, even if we have a partner at home. That's the reality that a lot of people are living in, even though it's 2024. Okay, yeah, that's all I'll say about that.
Well, as I say, and Jack was essentially a slug, and I still couldn't work like that with him, so I don't know what that unicorn looks like. I mean, he didn't move until he was like 10 months old. But he loved to type on computers, which made it really fun. As soon as I would get anything out to work, he's like this. Okay, so visionaries and thought leaders, you end up with this wonderful community support, you as a human, you as a parent, all of that stuff. But you have to have those people who are going to challenge you in your business. This is still a business. This is a professional undertaking, and you need someone who's going to talk to you about that, about those challenges and those ideas. Brothers, old managers, father-in-law. I love this. My husband's the dreamer, so they push me to achieve the goals. A best friend who launched their own company. Brothers starting their own business. They feed off of each other. A business coach, 100%. That can be a privilege because that's something that you are paying for that relationship, well worth it, but not everybody's in that space from the get-go. Called out some individuals, mentor advice, looking to each other, other parent entrepreneurs. That was obviously part of the inspiration with this group, is putting you in a room with people you can connect, putting ourselves in a room with people we can connect, who understand those specific challenges. I talked about Innovate Hers. That was a wonderful community for me. There are so many groups and organizations, a lot of them online, but you think about schools and neighborhoods. I threw out parents as teachers earlier for anyone who's pre-kindergarten. Awesome as a parent, but they also do get together, so I've met a lot of other parents through that organization.
There's also some cool groups specific to dads. One is Lead Dads. My acquaintance Paul runs that on the East Coast, but I believe it's sort of a nationwide cohort that you can get into with other dads who are professionals and also trying to take the lead in their kids' lives. So,
I recently saw a post, there's a Kansas City moms group, and one of the moms was like, where's the dad's version? My husband wants to meet people too. And one of the women was like, not everything is gender stereotyped, but women typically are better organizers. So women's groups are typically more successful because it falls in our nature to get everyone together. Doesn't mean men's groups aren't out there. You gotta look a little harder, so I'm glad for that suggestion. I did not know that one. So finally, our cheerleaders, our social emotional support, the people who just help us as human. Some ways that we're utilizing them: intentional time, getting things done that are harder to do alone, mommy meetup, parents offering support, neighbors, networking events, friends, families, lots of call outs there. I said something I was better at before I was a parent is I would walk the dogs every day after work, and I had a friend in the neighborhood who had the same schedule, and that was our routine. She joined me all the time. So finding ways to fit it into your current life. I've blanked on your name now. My auntie. What is it?
Avery?
Yes. She shows up to her friend's house 2 or 3 days a week. She's just there. She shows up, I'm like, okay, what are we gonna do today? We're here. Maybe we're hanging out, maybe we're socializing, maybe we're doing chores, maybe I'm doing chores while you're not. But just being available, Julie brought this up. School's out, I'm available, There's a couple of us that are all gonna go do XYZ. Workplaces, play cafes, we have all these options now to get people together and using them. Somebody else want to talk?
Happy to make a comment before we wrap up. We talked about this at our table. There's a theory that you might want to consider that you are the energetic average of the 5 major influencers in your life. So scan through your life and think of the 5 people you're spending the most time with. And how do they make you feel about your success? How do they make you feel about your relationship, romantic, friendship, community? Like when you leave that relationship, do you generally feel a positive or do you generally feel a negative? And so that may tell you if you're wanting to work in a business, when you hang out with Susie, you tend to feel lower about being an entrepreneur. And so maybe when you're having that challenge in your entrepreneurial journey, Susie is not the person you call anymore. Like you cancel coffee even though it was on the calendar, and instead you call Michael, who is, he's met a ton of entrepreneurs, and he's always going to ask you some questions to support you in diving deeper into your business. One other thing to consider, if there aren't 5 people that really show up in your life, is what if there's a podcast that you listen to religiously? What if there's a book or a book series that is always on your nightstand and you can always pop it open for some inspiration or something like that? So the people don't necessarily have to be in person. It could be watching a 5-minute Tony Robbins video on YouTube, or listening to it while you walk your dog. And like, oh, that's one of my 5 major influencers. And so remember that. Remember that you have these 5 pockets in your life, in person or otherwise, but they can pick you up and help you get back on track. Okay.
Okay, we are a few minutes over. Apologies. QR code will take you to a very quick survey, giving us your name and information, telling us whether or not you want to receive the slides and the brainstorm, so all of this will get typed up. And then is our LinkedIn
The end screen to that survey, once you submit it, will take you to our LinkedIn pages. So feel free to connect with us there. Yeah, thank you everyone.
Thank you.